Now all is set for the debate among presidential candidates for the minority political parties ahead of the general elections in December. JoyNews, in collaboration with Imani Center for Policy and Education, has put together an event dubbed Minority Political Parties Election Debate. Now that event is scheduled to take place at the University of Professional Studies, Accra UPSA, at 8 p.m. on Thursday, and is expected to help peruse the policies and commitment of candidates outside the remit of the governing New Patriotic Party and the biggest opposition party, the National Democratic Congress. They have a tendency to overshadow all the conversation. Now today, we begin the build-up with a candidate for the Convention People's Party, CPP, Ivor Kobna Greenstreet, a man who needs no introduction to this debate. He is our guest on the post today. It's good to have you, Mr. Greenstreet.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I remember the last time I spoke to you, that's a long time ago. I can't even remember when.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Maybe because I see you all the time on the screen, I'm assuming I'm speaking to you.
I guess so. It happens all the time. So how are the campaigns going? The CPP started pretty
50 something days to go.
Yes.
Well, actually, we didn't start too late in the sense that we had done much of our organization early at the polling station, electoral area, and constituency level. All our regional congresses and everything had been conducted last year. But COVID, kind of disrupted our processes and, a few internal issues and some financial challenges. But all the same, we believe we have the best alternative policies that can rescue this country from the situation that it finds itself in at the moment.
Internal issues and financial situation that you talk about. I want us to maybe look at this conversation in, let's say, 3 key blocks. So first of all, we look at the party and how it is doing. Yes. We look at the governance or the policy alternatives that you are presenting, for which reason you want Ghanaians to take you seriously as against the NPP or the NDC or any of the other political parties. And then we look at the election trends and maybe do look at the projections. So
I think I'm happy with your thematic areas.
Thank you. We'll see how that goes. So let's break it down. Let's start a little bit about the party. Like I said, the CPP, people have said, has almost died with the founder, Kwame Nkrumah. People have said that why aren't we having that CPP? And you indicated that you've had interviews where people have asked you, you've gone out where people have asked you, where is the CPP that will deliver the people? Where is that party?
On the contrary, the first, I don't want to use a strong word like fallacy in what you have just said.
It's okay.
Is that the CPP was in office, actually. Between 1979 to 1981 until it was overthrown. Just that it could not be called the Convention People's Party because the party name had been banned after the 1966 coup, which is why after even the return to constitutional rule in 1992, you had a number of different parties, NCP, NIP and other parties, who claimed the root or the strand from the original Convention People's Party. Obviously that was done on purpose to prevent that large party, that only party which is the legitimate guardian of Nkrumahism in this country, the only party which actually puts Ghana first, the only party which does not believe in tribal world banks, the only party that believes in utilizing the collective wealth of the nation for the benefit of the people. If you look at the last 28 years since the 1992 Constitution has come in and we've had 4 different governments of the NDC and the NPP, if we have over 50% unemployment of children between the ages of 18 to 34, clearly something they're doing is wrong. Obviously within that intervening period, there have been a number of coalesces of the CPP tradition. First it moved to PCP, then it moved to Convention Party. It was only until the 1999 or so the Convention People's Party actually got its name back.
Beautiful accolades there. But where is it? Are we feeling it? We're not feeling it.
Well, there's much more. I agree with you. There's much more that has to be done.
And I want us to start looking at it from the way you have performed, for example, in previous elections.
Yes.
In 2004, you yourself you were the parliamentary candidate for Iwaso West Legon.
You've gone deep into the history books.
You weren't successful there. In 2000.
But what you have to understand.
Let me just wrap it up.
No, let me intervene as you go. What you have to understand is during that election, I think the Convention People's Party candidate prior to me in the 2000 election had garnered something like 450 votes. When I became the candidate, I garnered more than 4,900 votes, more than 2,000 or 3,000% increase in points. In the first past the post electoral system. Sometimes you can get somebody get 18,000 votes and still lose the contest. So the fact is, how you observe or what you determine it actually reflects what reflects victory.
Okay.
For me, the vote
that was victory. Okay,
yeah.
I was just using that. I was just building up to where we are.
Okay, I won't interrupt you.
That's
again.
okay, and how the CPP has performed.
Yes.
So, if you look at 2004 and your inability to, take the
Yes.
seat for the
Yes.
party, you look at 2016 as a flag bearer, you polled some 25,552 votes, which was, I mean, it sounds a lot, but when you put it in the scheme of
also an increase on the 2012
I'll just put the question together so you respond to it. So you had some 25,000 plus votes, which was cool. But then
very inadequate.
Exactly, because if you put it in percentage terms and you want to compare with what was at stake, you had 0.24 or 24%, which is totally negligible. 2020, the party poll, you polled, I mean, when you did your internal elections, you polled about 1,364. So at that level, it seems to be working for you. But on the national level, looking at the trend, this is certainly not working for the CPP.
So a lot more has to be done. And that is why I explained to you earlier, we have done a huge amount of reorganization at the polling station level, at the electoral level, and also at the constituency level. If you look at 2016, when the current president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was attempting for the third time to become the presidential candidate, president of the Republic of Ghana, you would have noticed that there was a huge swing in his favor because of the fact that the people of Ghana were tired of the performance of the NDC, which meant that even the NDC themselves went down by over 1 million votes and were defeated at that election. Of course, there's still a huge gap in terms of what we have to do to make it up. But research that even Joy FM, I believe, has conducted, or other surveys which have been conducted, demonstrate that now there are about 20 to 30% of Ghanaians who are tired of the NDC and the NPP and are actually significantly looking for an alternative.
But they don't have that alternative in the CPP.
Well, the point is, we are now representing ourselves in this election to be that alternative. Those numbers were not the case in 2016. In 2016, there was a huge swing in favor of the NPP. They came up with a lot of promises, a lot of hopes for the people of Ghana. Many Ghanaians feel that they have entirely failed in the delivery of those promises to the people, in terms of it being reflected in their daily lives, in terms of it being reflected in the hope that they have for their families and their communities. So rather, we feel re-energized. Rather, we feel re-hopeful about how we can go about prosecuting our agenda for the 2020 election. And we believe it is the policies and principles of the Convention People's Party, which are entirely an alternative type of policy. It being a socialist party, it being a party with entirely alternative policies, which we believe actually are the only policies that can deliver this nation.
And trust me, we'll go into the policies. We'll have a little bit of time to go into the policies and see how or what alternatives you're presenting. Yes. But then why should a party that goes to Congress less than, say, I think 3 months to the election, why should or any Ghanaian voter, why should any Ghanaian voter take that party seriously and say that this is a party that's ready to take on a party like the NPP or the NDC?
When did NPP go to their Congress to, well, not elect, to endorse the sitting president as their candidate, also delayed because of COVID?
They have very little challenge. They had to endorse.
You're talking about dates. So I've indicated to you that well throughout 2019, we had completed all our regional congresses. This was not a last-minute congress we came to come and do based on a rushed activity at the local level. No, we had been highly organized. We've done a massive amount of reorganization at the polling station, constituency, electoral area, and the regional level. All of those elections have been conducted well before 2020. But at the beginning of 2020, there were some unfortunate hiccups that took place. But that did not disrupt the kind of reorganization and activities that we were engaged in. And we believe, with a great deal of confidence, that wherever we go, and once again I allude to your surveys, that most Ghanaians are entirely dissatisfied.
They are entirely dissatisfied. That's the point you have made.
We agree on something.
But the point is, well, are they ready for a party like the CPP? Wouldn't you say that the CPP, for example, has lost touch? Ghanaians have lost touch with the ideals of the original CPP, and that's why they're not ready for a party like yours.
Within this short period of time, we will do everything we can to prove to them, beyond all reasonable doubt, that the current policies that they have been deciding to choose for the last 28 years, if they have rendered 5 million Ghanaians to be without toilets, if it has rendered a quarter of women under the age of 18 still getting pregnant, if it has rendered millions of Ghanaians to be unemployed, then they themselves, the first answer to the question they pose to they themselves as they think of who to vote for should be, should I vote for NDC or should I vote for MPP? Certainly the answer that we believe they're telling themselves is no. Therefore, who do I vote for? And it is in that space that we'll be presenting entirely different policies, programs to take this country forward. Policies which have been ignored and policies which we believe are the only recipe to take a developing country out of the situation that it finds itself in.
You seem to think that this is the timing, or there is a certain timing about the 2020 elections that will work in favor of the CPP.
The results shall be the evidence.
Okay.
But we shall do our work and present our case to the people of Ghana.
And presenting your case, I want us to now look at the other set of questions that I have, or the next block of, if you like, thematic area that I have, which is the governance and or policy alternatives that the CPP is presenting to the people of Ghana. Let's begin with education. Better still, let's begin with safety and security, which is one of the biggest issues we're dealing with right now. Recently, and just before we went on the break and came back, we did a story about how, that people seem to be having a sense of insecurity, a growing sense of insecurity. Just last week, there were some arms confiscated by the customs at the Tema port. Apart from that, a member of parliament was shot and killed in what the police is treating as an armed robbery case. The police is still investigating that as an armed robbery case. Apart from that, there were other attacks or robbery attacks that had gone the previous week. There are people, Professor Bene, who was killed in his home. You have JB Dankwa-Edu's death, which has not been unraveled. So there seem to be, especially the minority has called it a growing sense of insecurity. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we don't have to turn ourselves also into alarmists. An MP is not being killed every week. And they're not people rampaging around the streets of our urban areas and rural areas, slashing people to bits on a daily basis. But yes, there is a heightened degree of tension, and there have been some unfortunate, terrible incidents which have fed into this situation whereby we all do feel a bit unsafe, particularly on roads, traveling around from town to town around the country. And so therefore, it behoves on our security apparatus, which I believe are highly trained and well qualified and capable of discharging their duties well, to obviously intensify, number one, their intelligence gathering, intensify the capacity that they have internally, and to meet their growing threat that clearly is occurring in our towns and villages all across the country. And I believe that being patriotic citizens, and I believe that the state will make the necessary resources available, that they will attempt to do what they can to defeat this scourge of recent dastardly crimes that have been committed around the country. Nobody is happy about the situation. Nobody would wish it to continue. And so we all have our duty to also play as citizens to assist those various authorities with information and with our own support to enable them to carry out their duties effectively.
Do you feel that there is enough public confidence in the security agencies for that to happen? What you've just said to happen?
Well, I think certainly the level of confidence should be much higher. I think that the level of confidence is quite low at the moment because of the repeated number of incidents. So they have to do certain things to demonstrate that they are on top of the work, on top of their job, and therefore the level of confidence will increase because people will feel and see their presence and see the activities they're engaged in to demonstrate that level of confidence. I think only last weekend or weekend before, the police engaged in an exercise to attempt...
They call confidence building.
Well, obviously it hasn't worked because since then there have been these incidents. But, crime is not something that, just goes away overnight. So intelligence gathering is the key. And clearly that's one of the things that we saw with this recent incident in the Volta region. Yeah. Clearly there seems to be either a lapse in intelligence gathering or a lapse in utilization of intelligence that was gathered to react to an unfortunate situation. So the people of Ghana need to have confidence, and it's a duty of these institutions to provide us with that confidence. Otherwise, things will only get worse, and we don't want things to get worse, we want things to get better.
Your initial comments seeks to suggest that what's happening, especially, for example, the killing of the Member of Parliament, are pretty isolated cases. Is that this is the sense I'm getting?
Well,
am I right?
how many cases have we had of a murdered MP this year?
It's not about the MPs, but it's about the number of people who are being killed and the number of cases that are
you mentioned the MP in particular, so that is why.
As one of the recent cases.
Yes. No, but clearly there are lots of incidents of crime and violent crime, which
so
is
it's not
very
an isolated case.
So it's not an isolated. No, they're not isolated cases. There's a growing trend, obviously, that's taking place. I think we've had lots of robberies and incidents on roads, even between Accra and Kumasi and elsewhere. And in the past, they've had to set up barriers. They've had to escort people, from, let's say, Kintampo to Tamale, and clearly it's on the rise. So that is what I'm talking about in terms of intelligence gathering and knowing what these groups and these criminals are up to, and dealing with it before it becomes a problematic situation.
So from what I'm gathering from what you said, there seemed to have been either a lapse in intelligence or lack of our ability to use the intelligence, whatever it is, if we had it. And I'm wondering, and you've also indicated that there is low public confidence in the security agencies. You think that we could do something to make it go up. You want to be president of this country. If you were president right this minute, and security is a very technical area. You don't just look at it on the surface of things, but you have people briefing you. If you were president, what will you do if you were president right now about what we're dealing with?
Well, I think there have been a number of programs that have been implemented about improving intelligence gathering, and I believe that the state itself has even been given support for those activities by some foreign governments. One of the problems we've had, particularly with intelligence gathering, is sharing of information that you gain from different institutions within the apparatus. So what someone may be able to find out at a immigration station at Elubu may not be shared with somebody at the CID headquarters in the police. What may be gathered by military intelligence may not be known by what's a border patrol in Sandema, may know.
They set up a center like that.
Yes, so they've now So those types of interventions to improve the good works that are being done, but tying those bits of intelligence information are key. And it is that investment in intelligence, investment in technology, investment in capacity building, investment in training, which I think would improve our capacity to react to these kinds of situations that we find ourselves in at the moment.
Do you think that the NPP is handling it the way it should? The NPP administration is handling the security situation, looking back at the secessionist attacks, the robberies, resourcing of the police or resourcing of the security agencies. Do you think?
Well, I certainly don't think they have a pass mark. I think they're below 50%, and I think they have
You put them below 50%?
Yes, I put them below 50%, which means that they may be doing something, because I think in some examinations, even 40% may be a pass mark. However,
40 is a fail.
Yes, well, they're not doing enough, and I believe that far more have to. And I'm sure they themselves will recognize it. I think at a point in time, they even had some kind of ministerial reshuffle. They added a Minister of State of State Interior. They have a whole series of national security appointees, and at a point in time, we have
a national security minister. We have a minister for interior. We have the Minister of State in charge of the interior at the interior, which is Brian Champon. And are you saying? We don't. I mean, people made arguments earlier.
The evidence,
but they're certainly working. That's why they've said that we could have been in a worse position.
Well, that may be the case. If you want to do comparative analysis with other countries, if you look at what's happening in Burkina Faso and Mali and elsewhere, clearly they're in a far worse situation than we are here. But that doesn't mean that we have to judge ourselves against lower standards. Ghana, we wish to judge ourselves according to high standards, and we wish to do far better and even be the best. And so therefore, I think at a point in time, even the government themselves were doing assessments of ministries and different sectors and how well they were doing. I'm sure if they did their own internal assessment now, they wouldn't be getting very good assessment figures for their performance thus far. I think we've had issues of vigilantism and all these kinds of things which have taken place as well, which are things that we would not want, especially as we are moving closer to a period where there's going to be greater tension and the possibility of outbreaks of violence. These are the last things we want to see. We want to see fairness, we want to see transparency, we want to see an even hand and a level playing field in all of the activities that are engaged in.
So that 50 or the below 50% that you say, is that for only security or for the general?
Well, I think we're talking about security.
We are talking about, so that's for only security. Yeah. And if I got what you said earlier correctly, what you would have done if you were president was to work better with intelligence. Intensify
intelligence gathering, intention sharing between the various different institutions of state who, it is that failure to share which has caused a lot of problems in the past, because the information is being held by one part of the arm of government but not being shared with the other. You need to have a central focal point who can analyze this kind of data and therefore react.
I see. Apparently I've run out of time. I don't even know how that happened. I think we just had very short conversation. But let's look at your policy alternatives when it comes to education. The NPP has been hailed for presenting the free SHS. Everybody, a lot of people have been talking. If I would just land with my question, a lot of people have been talking about this. They say that this is great. My children are going to school and I'm not even paying anything. What is the CPP presenting that is better than the policies the NPP has in education, for example?
Point number one, we are paying for it, but it's the people of Ghana and the resources of this nation which is paying for it. But it happens to be free, which it is good. It is the Convention People's Party, which is the party which first introduced free education in this country. So if a government is introducing a very laudable policy, we would fully support it.
So you continue with the free SHS?
Not only we will continue it, our policies are free from kindergarten all the way to tertiary level. So with our policies, it's not just free SHS, it is free from kindergarten to tertiary.
I see.
Because that is the way, is even one of the ways you can explain the utilization of our beliefs of Nkrumahism or our socialist policies. Utilize the wealth of the nation, our oil, gold, gas, cocoa, timber, diamonds, bauxite, fertile land, strong human beings, for the benefit of the collective mass of the people. You concentrate on collective wealth for the collective benefit of the people of Ghana. And that is what free SHS does, and that is what free education, which we would be employing, does from kindergarten to tertiary. You give people the opportunity who ordinarily would not have access to those skills, training, and education.
I've run out of time. I wanted to talk about I want to talk about health and transportation as well, but we don't have the time to go. I want you to wrap up on that, but there'll be more time to talk about
when
this.
Are you inviting me back?
On Thursday. On Thursday,
Thursday's the
debate. Yes. So which will allow you to put forward your thoughts. But we'll wrap up. I mean, I wanted to look at projections. 2020 projections. You think you do better than 0.24%?
Projections?
Yes.
Well, one of the first things we'll be doing is changing the name of Jubilee House, not even to Flagstaff House. We'll be changing it to Ghana House or Ghana Fie, or it's on Accra land, Ghana Shia, to unite the people of this country for one common destiny and a new way forward, instead of all this division and rancor that we see in our politics.
Do you have an idea what
government of all inclusiveness.
Do you have an idea what percentage you
once I'm telling you that the name is being changed, to tell you that we know we are going to what's currently called Jubilee House.
I see. Mr. Greenstreet, it's been interesting talking to you. Unfortunately, we couldn't touch on most of the things that I wanted, but and to also take your questions, we've run out of time. But on Thursday at the UPSA, you get the chance to hear all of them on one stage, Mr. Greenstreet himself included. Thank you so much for coming.